Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Citizens Oversight Committee for Public Safety Tax and Public Safety Transaction and Use Tax. Thank you for arriving to our first 6 o'clock meeting. With that, I'd like to officially call this meeting to order, and I will now ask for the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead and do that. And then, Mr. Santos, before you take a sip, would you like to lead us in the pledge? Thank you. So if everyone could please stand. Thank you, everyone. Okay. I'd like to entertain roll call.
Ingram is absent. Perez?
Present.
Price?
Here.
Santos?
Present.
Kindred Windsor?
Present.
We have a quorum. So we're going to do public comment pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3. Residents wishing to address the Citizens Oversight Committee regarding only the items on the agenda may do so when the item is read for consideration. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it is not required. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Under the provisions of the California Government Code, the Citizens Oversight Committee may not discuss or take action on any item that is not on the agenda.
So with that, we'd like to welcome anyone from the public to come to the podium to speak. Please be advised that we will be adhering to the 3-minute rule. Is there anyone in the public wishing to come forward at this time? Keith? The public comments is for items that are not agendized. Oh, I'm sorry, only items on the agenda, excuse me. When the item is read for consideration. Thank you, Linda, for taking that lead.
I'm kind of confused. I'm pretty done with this. But anyhow, Linda Atwater, good evening. So nice that you have this meeting at 6 o'clock. I love it. I'm just looking at your expenditures over the last few years and noticed a few things that didn't sit well with me, of course. But I'm just going to ask, and then you can let me know later on. This bid of $11,000, there was some training equipment, Muscle D Fitness. And I'm curious, who signed the PO, who ordered it, and can other city employees use this equipment too, like police, public works? That's one of my big questions, because this is our money. This money doesn't belong to the fire department, and should have never been taken out of Measure B to begin with. But since it has been, are you going to share it with the other city employees? The other thing too is when the old chief that was here, what's his name, Salvador, he said that there was going to be some sort of a public safety master plan, but he sure didn't say it was going to cost $200,000. And so it just irritates the heck out of me. I'd like to use the other word, but I can't. You cut 2 officers from the budget, and you're spending $200,000 for all this crap that doesn't even benefit anybody. And I hope you folks read these expenditures. I hope you read the budget, because you know what? Your funds, like we used to sit up there, you're supposed to be an oversight. I know the money is spent before you get to look at it, which is really wrong. I think it's misuse of public funds. And we're going to find that out, because I already talked to Chris. I think a good old-fashioned audit from the state's going to be coming down the line. And I think you're going to have to pay this back to put it back into the general fund or wherever it came from. Or general fund's going to have to reimburse Measure B, because I can't see, paying this stuff when it should come out of. Oh, the other things too is PERS, for heaven's sakes. We're in debt to PERS. We've been in debt to PERS for years, and now you're paying back PERS out of Measure B. Can't do it. Can't do it. And y'all going to get in trouble because you're not looking at it. Thank you much, and I love you.
Is there anyone else in the audience?
Right, a couple things. First, addressing the minutes that you guys are supposed to approve. Last meeting, I spoke and I asked about 2 items, what they were for. And according to the minutes, it said Pulaski talked about expenditures. Well, where do the minutes go? And who would know what I even said? Because they didn't put everything I said. Second thing is, I don't know who can answer this or if they can. Where is the public safety expenditure plan? Where is that located? Also, according to the ordinance, the committee is to at least annually give a report to the city council and to the public. And I'm trying to locate the reports for 23 and 24. If they were only done annually, I've looked on the website and I can't find those, so if somebody could direct me to where those are at, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time under public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comments.
Okay, so the first item is changing the time for regular meetings from 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. Staff's recommendation, motion to approve the Citizens Oversight Committee for Public Safety Transaction and Use Tax change of the regular meeting time from 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Is there any discussion prior to a motion from the committee? If not, we'll entertain a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Santos, second by Perez.
Second.
Price,
Yes.
Santos,
Yes.
Kindred Wizard.
Yes.
The motion passes. Now we'll move on to minutes, December 10, 2024 for regular meeting. Motion to approve the minutes as listed.
If there's no discussion about this item, I would like to entertain a motion and a second for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Santos, second by Kindred Wizard. Perez,
Yes.
Price,
No.
Santos,
Yes.
Kindred Wizard.
Yes.
The motion passes. So now we'll move on to reports and presentations from staff. Verbal financial report by Finance Director Nicholas.
Thank you, Gisela. Good evening, committee and community. The financial reports that have been requested by the committee are included in the packet and have been provided in advance for review. As a reminder, there have been 2 reports that were requested and provided for the committee. One is an accounts payable transaction report, and that shows you the vendor name, a brief description of what the payable is for, the general ledger account number, and the amount. That is year to date. So you'll see transactions that you've saw before. So that's a cumulative. The second report that's been provided to the committee is the unaudited budget status report. That's for the current fiscal year to date. So again, this is cumulative, and this is always unaudited. So that's something important to remember. One thing I will note for those of you, if you didn't tune in to the mid-year budget, is sales tax for the revenue for this fund was adjusted down based on the latest forecast. So that will be an adjustment down of $85,300, and that's based on the latest forecast from our consultant using their analytics that they use to forecast that out. There have been no changes in expenditures. Everything that was approved by the budget through council, that is the same, and happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions for the finance director?
Just have one. I noticed some professional services, and I know it was mentioned, but we had asked Police Chief Salvador in the past regarding the master plan, and I'm not sure if city manager or if finance can give us an update on that, on what's been paid out for that, and do we have any update information regarding that master plan? There was supposed to be some deliverables from our last meeting.
I can give you an update on the amount paid. Any programmatic inquiries, I'll defer to the city manager, to the department representatives. But for fiscal year 23 and so fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year 24-25, which is the current year we're in, the total paid is $182,500. In terms of any more expenses coming, I'll defer to a programmatic inquiry to city manager. As a reference, if you look at the 23-24 budget, it was budgeted for $200,000, and they had only completed a certain amount, and so then again budgeted $150,000 to complete it this year, with estimating the project was going to be about $200,000.
And I had emailed the new police chief just to find out if there was any updates on that particular, and I'm not sure if Chief Pimentel or the law enforcement representative can update us at all on any deliverables for that. Just, I have a hard time with $182,000 being spent and no deliverables yet regarding that master plan or any updates.
I can touch on that a bit. So we received a draft master plan report that we're reviewing. This has been an iterative process back and forth, and also with our new police chief coming in, there were some getting him up to speed and helping finalize the police part of the plan. There's police and fire in the plan, but if Chief Pimentel, if you'd like to talk about just an overall summary of the station plans.
Yeah, good afternoon, committee members. My name is Mark Pimentel. I'm the Assistant Chief for Atwater City Fire Department. Yes, we've gone through several emails and actually looked at some plan reviews, looking at the Station 41's remodel, and then also looking at a Station 42 remodel. With Chief Ayuso, myself, and City Manager, we were able to kind of identify a really high mark on trying to figure out how to better suit that station for years to come so that it could be facilitated for at least 20 to 30 years out. And in that process, it actually was a little excessive. City Manager actually identified some of those things, and we reduced some of those costs that were going to be associated with those remodels, and came back with a pretty good sound setup for how it could be adjusted slightly, not extremely, and be able to accommodate additional staff at a later date when that ever comes, and then actually be a suitable facility for the fire department 20 to 30 years out. With that as well, we also looked at a new station, possibly in the city's area, that also is kind of located, I want to say that the location is not determined, but it's kind of an idea. It's a process that we're going through just to kind of see if it would best suit the city, but looking towards the Atwater High area along Winton Way, that area, there's some land there that can suit a facility there and would give us a little bit better coverage as the third station coming into the city. Again, that was a full build, brand new station at an X amount of cost, which we thought was suitable. And then we also looked at a fourth station being out on the other side of Santa Fe with some possible new development that we were looking at. But with those four, 2 remodels and 2 builds, kind of got through that and provided that through the fire department, and we thought was a very sensible option for the city moving forward. I'm here for any other questions you may have with the fire department side of it.
Thank you, Chief, and I can provide a little bit more information. So the, the plan that we have nearly ready. I'd like to work with staff, the chiefs, to present to City Council, and when that happens, I'm thinking it could probably happen as soon as the next council meeting or the first meeting in April. And when that happens, we will concurrently notify the committee members so that they can also review that document.
Mark, I just wanted to, you mentioned Station 41 and 42, and you said remodel? Is that, am I correct in that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, you know, again, I want to preface my comments again by emphasizing that I'm not against any of these things that you guys want to do and everything. It's all about the money. And a remodel of a firehouse or any other facility, in my mind, is not concurrent with the ordinance as written. Personnel and equipment, and it's right here in front of me, is very specific. Remodeling facilities, there's no language to facilities within that right there. So do you have a dollar figure that you know of for whatever remodel items need to be done?
I do not have that. We have not finished the document yet to be there. Again, this is just a plan for the city to have an idea moving forward. These are some options, but not actual expenditures are going towards those remodels or new build-outs. Those are just part of the plan so that the city can best set themselves up for the future. And I believe that's the plan that we started on, to make sure that the city has a perspective on how they want to move forward, not necessarily expending those funds out of Measure B or anywhere else, but just at least putting a plan together in order to be successful moving forward with both the police and fire.
Okay, so am I correct in assuming that what you're talking about with 4142 is incorporated into the public safety master plan, or is it separate line item?
It's included in the public safety master plan, yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I'd also just like to go, since you brought it up, committee member Price, about the ordinance. So this is on the city's website, in the Atwater Municipal Code, and it's Measure B is the ordinance here, 3.45.130. It talks about the use of tax proceeds and the expenditure plan, and if I may, just read this part that talks about what the purpose and what the public safety services means. Under A, talking about police, it means obtaining, furnishing, operating, and or maintaining police protection equipment and apparatus. So the first item is equipment and apparatus. Paying the salaries and benefits of police protection personnel. So this number 2 is their salaries and benefits. And the third one is, and such other police protection service expenses as are deemed necessary by the city council for the benefit of the residents of the city. So it's a city council determination, and this is a broad category that covers a lot of the things that we are talking about here, because it says such other police protection service expenses. And so this includes, for example, it was brought up at public comment, the training equipment. And to answer your question, it is shared equipment. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Well, if I might, you know, it was pointed out earlier about this public safety master plan, $182,500 out of Measure B. What you just read, I'm reading right along with you, and I don't see anything in here about reports or planning or consultants or any of that sort of thing. You know, it seems to be specific for equipment, and you can take the word equipment and you can kind of bust it up 50 different ways if you want. Obviously, that was done when it came to the exercise equipment. But something along the lines of $182,500 to a consulting firm to draft this thing, that's a lot of money. That's a cop. Am I not correct, Sergeant Snyder? That's a cop. And to spend that kind of money, and we're still spending it, and we still have nothing, to see. I guess there's, you were mentioning possibly a draft, but still, $182,500 when compared to what is written in the ordinance, it just isn't compatible to it. So, those kind of expenditures, I think are important to find a different funding source, whether it be the general plan, or I'm sorry, general fund, or a combination of other funds. I don't know, but Measure B funds, that wasn't what was sold to the public. I went to the meetings that promoted Measure B pre-election. Nothing was ever mentioned about this kind of an expenditure and for that purpose. So anyway, that's my comments on that, and I'll have others later. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I just want to make sure we don't repeat what we did back in 2008 when we had a Citygate study done that provided a bunch of input regarding the city's public safety services. The city of Atwater paid a lot of money back in 2008 for that study, and we have been successful with accomplishing some of the staffing levels, as Chief Pimentel can attest to, and Sergeant Snyder as far as the law enforcement. What I have a concern with is very much like Mr. Price is we've paid out $182,000 and there's still nothing that's been delivered. And not to say that everything that comes out of this study is going to be paid for by Measure B or public safety use tax. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is $182,500 has been paid out of this public safety tax and there's been no deliverable. That's where I have a concern.
Just to clarify, that the city staff has received the deliverable, and we're preparing it for presentation to the city council meeting, and concurrently we'll notify the committee members so that they can review it as well.
Perfect. I appreciate the same response we got at the last meeting. Thank you.
I have just one quick comment to kind of piggyback off Mr. Price as well. I mean, we're discussing the expenditure and the use of the funds and whether it's deemed appropriate or not under the measure. If this is the Oversight Committee and we're raising that question and that concern, I'd like to know what we can do moving forward to address these issues or these concerns, I guess.
All right, if you could clarify anything in specific that I can help with.
Well, I mean, to clarify, I mean, we're raising concerns about the way the money's being used. I also heard furniture remodeling when they were talking about the money being invested, how that's defined and what we're talking about. That's, I guess, it'd be more if we can get more details as far as the way they're breaking that down and what the definition of remodeling is, because if the money's not being used for tools or for equipment, then we should know, and then we should be able. There should be transparency as far as what that covers or entails.
Okay. Yeah, I understand now. So, that's why I think it's important for us to go back to the ordinance and what Measure B is, and those three categories include, the first is equipment and apparatus. The second is salaries and benefits, which includes all benefits. And the third is just a broad other category. When it says other, And we're not talking about refrigerator for the finance department or a land use plan with the community development department. These are all public safety expenditures that are specific to police and fire. And sorry, there's 3 over here and there's 1 over here, so I'll try to go back and forth, but yeah, so that third category is what covers all of these things.
Yeah, I've read job descriptions in the past that says other responsibilities as they come up, so it kind of covers everything and anything. But I know that the description you're reading is one, but I would want to know what in details where the expenditures like fall or what they look like, because being covered under the umbrella of all other items, I wanted more details and more description.
Yeah, I think that that brings up the question when it comes to, and I'm only using this remodel scenario as the example, that it just automatically brings up the question, at what point do you draw the line where the matter now becomes capital improvement, right? As opposed to a matter for ADA accessibility that requires a specific type of door or ramp to be placed. I'm just, not to minimize anything. It does beg the question, at what point does the project now becomes a capital improvement project as opposed to this other category where one could justify the use, for illustration, of $15,000 expenditure? It's just an example.
Sure. Yeah, and talking with our public safety personnel, it's important to our staff to have a place to work and to have a solid roof that's not leaky and floors that are not slippery, and we need a place to operate out of, a headquarters. And so when we're looking at expenditures and looking at this public safety master plan, we want to make sure that we're not going kind of all out on a Cadillac plan, but having a reasonable common sense approach to make sure that there's not infinite funding in Measure B. So we have to be very careful, and the general plan as well, very careful about how we spend these funds, and that's why we take a serious look at it and make sure that it fits just right, and that the place that the police and fire work in is suitable in order for them to perform their duties. And I don't mean to be on the soapbox or anything. I'm hoping that by bringing us together, we can look at this and hopefully understand some of the public comments as well. And if I may, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up. So the minutes, just for clarification, if I may, during the public comment, the minutes are posted. The videos of the minutes are posted on the website, so it's clear to see what everyone's saying at this meeting because it's being recorded. So there's a permanent record of that, every word that's said. And then another question that came up, I just wanted full transparency to help answer these questions. Where is the public safety expenditure plan? That's part of our annual budget. And another topic that was brought up was about the committee doing an annual report to the city council. I've been here for, 8 or 9 months, and I don't know how it was done in the past, but I'll make sure that we fulfill that requirement. It's important, and so we'll be looking at that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, City Manager. And I just wanted to reiterate to both the community and the committee members that when we get these reports, the staff has been great about responding back to any questions I've had. I know Police Chief is gone at some training, we did communicate some emails back and forth, and I did speak with Chief Ayuso. And I just encourage committee members, if we get the paperwork and we have any questions, that we are able to freely ask those questions beforehand and get any explanations that we may have prior to the meeting. The other comments that I did have for the law enforcement side, I'll bring up when those come up. But we did have some other questions that I shared with the police chief regarding that. Thank you.
If I may also, where you were noting the third portion of the paragraph, and I'm just using the police as an example, other police protection service expenses as deemed necessary by the city council. The key words that I see here is other police protection service expenditures. So that to me is pretty specific. Police protection expenses, what does that mean? I don't follow the logic with, for example, flooring for the police department. I get it that they need to have a nice facility and all that. I am 100% behind that. Again, going to Mr. Perez's point, we're in an oversight capacity, and the way things are fashioned within the Measure B, we have no recommendation authority, suggestions. I mean, we can't make these things available to the city council in the form of a recommendation or whatever. We don't have an attorney here to sort through this sort of thing, and I know that for the last 2-3 meetings, I continually keep bringing this up. And in an oversight capacity, guys, I'll tell you, I'm going to keep bringing them up because I'm not hearing that we're looking into the general fund as the funding mechanism to take care of certain things. And the public safety master plan is just one of those. I don't see that in the ordinance. And I've read this 2-3 times, and I'm sorry, I just can't come across language that would justify, at this point, $182,500 when it could be put out on the street in the form of a uniform. That's my contention in that. And I'm looking at, I've highlighted throughout the financial breakouts here, questions, Merced Roofing for the police department and an ADA compliant door. Where is that ADA compliant door being installed? Sergeant Snyder, can you address that?
Members of the committee, my name is Dayton Snyder, Police Sergeant for the City of Atwater. I cannot tell you where that's going because I'm not involved in the master plan. I would defer to that to the city manager or the chief police, Rich McKeechin, for follow-up for further on that.
Okay, well, this is something that apparently is not part of the master plan. This is happening now or going to be happening now. So, Chris, do you have any input on that?
I'll follow up with you as soon as possible on that question.
Okay, well, an ADA compliant door, here's my concern. If that ADA compliant door is going to be located on the east side of the police station, there's no way that anybody who would fall into the ADA criteria would be able to access that area out there, because you have, that's basically a sterile area out there strictly for police cars and for the police officers and what have you to park back there. The way I look at it is an ADA compliant door should be something that the public is accessible to. After hours, the doors up front here are the only doors that lead into the building here, and they are locked unless the dispatch opens them. Am I not correct, Sergeant Snyder? that the doors are locked out in front unless after hours somebody rings a bell and they gain access?
That is correct. Willing to speak a little bit about the about the east side of the building. Keep in mind, though, we have staff members and things like that that may have medical issues and such that we also have to look out for, not just our uniform, but clerical staff and things like that. So there is a need to make sure that we're taking care of that side in case we have an employee that has to have an accommodation. So there could be a need potentially for having that retrofitted for an ADA compliant door to avoid any future potential issues.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. In any case, roofing, the Merced roofing issue, I understand there was some leak in the roof or something here recently or sometime. I mean, going back as far as at least 2014, I remember this roof finds leaks all the time. But whether or not it's a Measure B thing, just because a leak might spring out over the police department, I think is inappropriate if that's the case. But I mean, looking at this, that's $10,200 bucks. That's a lot of bucks. Tri-county flooring, we're looking at another $10,432. So that's $20,600 between those two items right there. That's not chump change. You know, it adds up. The fitness equipment. So, you know, if we're going to go by what you were saying here about, and I'll drop down to paragraph B here, which covers the fire department, and it says, other fire protection service expenses, including capital expenses, as are deemed necessary by the council. So, something along the line of the exercise equipment was something that I guess fell under that approval process by the city council. So I know this sounds far-fetched, but where does that type of logic end? I mean, could they order a hot tub or a sauna because they're working out and now they want to take a sauna too? I mean, where does that end? It's you know, one of those things that it's so open-ended that I don't understand it. I think that exercise equipment, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I think that is an item that should have been general fund funded. But again, I go back to, and I don't have the document with me tonight, but I read it into the record here last meeting that CAL FIRE had a directive for their firefighters, and it was all out of Sacramento. It was not a directive from the city about exercise equipment. It also addressed fitness memberships, bringing in their own equipment and exercising with that, with the approval process out of the way. Several different items, but it had nothing to do with the city and expenditures out of the Measure B funding. So, you know, those are that's a concern with me. Another item I noted on here, reserve firefighters are getting shirts and hats through inside lines. You know, that's a nice thing, but I mean, don't we have a fire and police line item through the general fund that something like that could have, you know, an expenditure there? Same thing for Cal Farm. Cal Farm Services, it just says supplies, and that was another $1,670 bucks. So it's, what's that for? I guess is my whole thing. Vista Paint. I know that I brought this up before about the firehouse and painting the doors on the firehouse. Again, not a public safety thing. I don't see the public being any safer with painted doors, you know. I just, that's, I guess my whole thing is, you know, in business, and, you know, I'm a business person, and one of the things that, you know, when I go to spend money, I do what is typically a cost-benefit analysis. So that's what I kind of apply to this, is the cost, the benefit, but also the authorization for it. And again, going back to Mr. Perez's point, we're making certain points here. And are they just points? Is it just words in the air? Or, you know, I honestly believe that this was a huge failure on the Measure B. Putting it together was that this city was kind of, or the committee was hamstrung by not being able to have a little more say-so in how things are being purchased, or services and things like that, that really don't fall under what we would call, or not even what we would call, what anybody off the street would call a public service benefit to them, because that's what people are talking about. You know, right now, Sacramento, they're moving through legislation through the assembly that is going to make it that if someone breaks into your house at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and you pull your pistol and pop them, guess what? You are now becoming the criminal, as the person that shot him, and the guy laying on the floor is the victim. Now, you know, that's the kind of things that are going on. So in my mind, I want my police department for this city to be the best equipped, the best armed, and the best staffed. I want them all out there. You know, we've got, what, 26 sworn officers right now, somewhere in that neighborhood? You know, when I sat in the middle chair, we had 33 when I first took office, and it just went down, went down, went down. We don't have a volunteer police department either. That went away. So we're regressing. We're not making progress here. We've got to make progress. Measure B is supposed to be that funding mechanism that gets all those things. Mark spoke to a new firehouse, that kind of stuff. You're talking a couple $1 million for something like that, not including equipment and staffing. That's going to be a huge bill if we have to do something like that. I remember talking to Mark Lawson about that when it came to Ferrari Ranch. Ferrari Ranch is another area where a fire station, if that ever develops out there, they're going to need more fire protection out there. Am I not correct, Mark? Ferrari Ranch is going to be a big deal, because it'll be hopefully an industrial park someday. What else did I have on here? Retirements. Why are we paying PERS for retired officers or retired public safety people? Could be fired guys too. Why are we paying the PERS on that? That wasn't part of this measure. I don't care how you look at it. This was not part of the measure. Well, it's a benefit, yes, but it is a benefit for those that's under it. PERS is something that, you know, they pay into. It's all that kind of stuff. I don't see that as being a benefit that this measure should be picking up in that particular capacity. Professional services, I also see in here $40,000, but I don't know what for. But there it is. We spent $40,000, and it's under, Chris, if you want to note this, 0004-2021-3030. 40 grand for that. Another one for professional services, 0004-2030-3030. It's to the tune of $553,157.98. $500,000. Improvements to other than buildings, $245,000. Can somebody explain that?
I'm lost. If you want to give me the account number,
Oh, I sure will.
You went
It's
way-
0004-2030-6031.
What was the amount?
For other than building, $245,000. Actually, it's a budgeted amount. So it's money set aside out of this fund, and so it's, what is that aimed at? Anyway, people, I'm apologizing to all of you. I get long-winded on all this stuff.
So
Yes, go ahead.
account number, so Measure B Fund 4 and 2030-6031, is that correct?
Yes, improvements other than building.
Improvements other than building. And Committee Member Perez, this will help you you were asking for a breakdown. So if you reference the budget, it has the breakdown of what the planned expense was for that $245,000. Fire station 41 bay doors of $45,000. Bathroom ADA station improvements of $150,000, and fire station 41 gate repair of $50,000. Professional services, I think I'd like to touch on which account number you were looking at on that one.
There was two.
The first one was 3030.
For which department?
I think, Jim, did you say 40,000 approximately?
Yes, 40,000.
0004-2021-3030. Is that correct?
Correct. And I guess that's also a budgeted amount, but I just keep seeing professional services popping up.
It appears that nothing has been expended, but
Right.
what is it a placeholder for?
What's the account number again, Chris?
0004-2021-3030.
40,000. So referencing our budget document, that is LPR, which I believe is license plate readers, and DA Citizens Portal.
Can it be labeled license plate readers? Anyway. And then the other one was the 0004-2030-3030 professional services, a budgeted amount of $2,900,000, and
It's important to note we pay a portion of our CAL FIRE agreement, which is approximately $5 million a year, out of that line item.
okay, so I guess, which makes sense, don't get me wrong, but just calling it professional services, couldn't we say CAL FIRE agreement?
It says CAL FIRE agreement in the budget.
In the budget, but what we're getting presented with, it doesn't say that. It says professional services.
I think based on the way that this printout works, I think the best practice may be, unless we can find a different way, which we could look into that, may be to have the budget and this document hand in hand
Okay.
so that we can look at them together. And that will help answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, because we don't have the budget in front of us, so, anyway, which, I mean, it sounds logical, don't get me wrong, but this is what we're presented, so I don't know anything else other than.
It's okay.
in front of me.
Maybe what we could do is provide a printout of the budget to keep in your binder that you can bring to each of the meetings as kind of a reference document.
Okay.
I was just going to comment on a couple of Mr. Price's questions that came up regarding the physical fitness equipment. Chief Ayuso had brought that to us quite some time ago, so I think that one just needs to get put to rest. That's been discussed already and approved with the physical fitness for the firefighters and public safety staff in the city. I had reached out to Chief Ayuso regarding the farm supply because I had the same question, and that was for chainsaws for the new Type 6 piece of equipment that's coming in. So that was something that he explained to me when I asked those questions. The physical fitness equipment, like you mentioned at the last meeting, there is a requirement, health and safety requirement with the contractual agreement with CAL FIRE and the physical fitness standards with our negotiations with them. So that's been discussed. I think we need to put that one to rest.
You're saying that we are contractually obligated for that? That's in the contract? How is?
We have a contract with CAL FIRE.
Oh, yes, I understand that. I'm just saying, where's the language within that contract? Because I know the contract does say that the city will provide, equipment, that kind of thing for CAL FIRE. Well, that's fire trucks and, that type of thing. How does that break out to fitness equipment? I mean, it's, yes, it's equipment, but again, I read into the record last meeting about the CAL FIRE directive, not a city directive, and so here's the CAL FIRE directive, but we've got to go and pick up the cost for it. I just find that a little, I don't know, just odd. It just doesn't seem to pass the smell test with me on that one. But like you say, it's money already spent. Put it to rest. It's a done deal, and it's a shame because we should have had it brought before us before the expenditure, like some other things. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move on to the next item.
Now we have verbal police department update with Police Sergeant Snyder.
Members of the community, Sergeant Snyder, Atwater Police. I'll provide you guys with the stats that we've compiled in the month of February of 2025. Total incidents the police department responded to was 3426. That's 3,426. Of that, there were 177 traffic stops. 143 citations were issued as well. Total reports from the officers was 283 reports, and total arrests were 70, and collision reports for motor vehicle accidents were 38 for the month. We are swearing in a new employee on Thursday for the replacement of Officer Lopez, who we lost to Merced. We have a trainee who just completed the FTO program. She's on the shadow phase. She finishes up her last week and will be on the streets solo by herself. Well, she's solo in her car now, being watched, but she'll be out on her own completely off the field training program. So you'll see a new face in town, and that's Officer Reyes. And that's what I have so far, if you guys have any other questions.
Thank you for being here tonight, Sergeant Snyder. Appreciate you being able to be here. I did email these questions over to the police chief. There were some questions that came up from the community. Not sure, I'm not asking you to have to answer them, but if he did respond to those, I'd appreciate it. But I did have some questions regarding the 2023-24 staffing levels dropping from 28 to 26 on sworn peace officers. So the reduction of 2, just wanted to find out what was going on with that. I also asked the question on, previously there was an officer that was assigned to the unhoused population, just being a point of contact for other outside agencies and resources, and that position had not been filled when that officer promoted to sergeant. So I was just wondering if that had been reassigned yet. And then my last was question to the new police chief was, with all the new officers, just ensuring that they were aware of our city ordinances, specifically parks and things like that. So appreciate any comments you may have regarding any of those.
Regarding the positions from 28 to 26, I'm going to defer that obviously to our other stakeholders in the room. They have a little more insight on why the 2 corporal positions were frozen. As far as the second question, Officer Lee, I believe, was you're referring to, who promoted to sergeant, who was in charge of our unhoused. He's still a great wealth of knowledge regarding that. I think any of the sergeants were well versed in providing information and who they can work with in the community to provide some services. It's not uncommon that I reach out to Ms. Dash when we have an individual that wants services, and usually whenever I reach out to Ms. Dash, she's Johnny on the spot and provides whatever services she can. With your last question, I apologize.
The last question was just with all the new officers, we have a lot of city ordinances, and it goes right with just making sure that they're aware of our city ordinances, specifically parks being closed after hours and removing those individuals from parks after hours. Not all individuals.
Curfew violations, I get it, and things like that. So I don't work nights. Officer Davis is our night sergeant, and Officer Lee is our on the other side, sergeant. Once again, they should be enforcing curfew and park ordinances. When I worked nights, that was something that we readily did. Recently, I put out an email as well regarding camping issues and things like that, and how to further address them. And going into the Muni Code subsection 8, chapter 8, where it details what the fine schedule looks like and how we can better provide for those services. And so they do get regular training, a lot of our newer officers, regarding how to handle those things.
Thank you.
You bet.
And then to answer your question, the first question you had, and this is based on my understanding, not having been here for the last budget process, but during that process there were identified 2 vacant, I feel like I'm echoing in here, vacant corporal positions that I don't know how long they were vacant, but they, and I could find out, but they, from my understanding, to close that budget gap that we had, they were removed from the budget. However, my understanding is that the total number of dollars that we spend on the general fund and on Measure B for police salaries has continuously gone up each year since the passing of Measure B, and that, I believe, is a requirement for us to continue that. So it's our goal to maintain staffing levels, and I guess last year with the budget process, it was a matter of trying to resolve that budget issue, but it's certainly something in the future that we'd like to explore. Having the best numbers of police officers that we can. I think it's a important thing to look at.
And I appreciate, again, Sergeant Snyder being here tonight. I did reach out to the police chief. I know we have a new police chief. I am simply, as the previous president for Measure B and the public safety and use tax, I am completely against losing positions when we raised, funds and passed a measure for those positions. I'll be reaching out to your local officer, peace officers union, and I'll also be reaching out to the police chief when he does come back from his training, because I want to know the plan for that. when I went out and did door to door and with a lot of the other community members, that was one of the things that we really assured by. I know there's a new police chief, and I know the previous police chief had sold a plan which had 28 officers, and now the current budget shows 26. So my concern is that if it's not in that budget, in my eyes and in the eyes of the public, those positions are gone. So they should be there, and I just want to ensure for myself and the public who voted yes and got the measure passed that we're not losing those positions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so even if the 2 corporal positions aren't filled, you would just simply have 2 additional police officers, yeah?
There should be 2 vacant
Right.
corporal positions on the budget. And we were successful with the fire department staffing, and I know we can do it with the law enforcement side also. So I know we have a new police chief, and he'll come in with his own ideas and everything else that I look forward to hearing, but it will never sit okay with me or the public losing police officers. When you look at national stats and national studies, you look at population, we're not there. So we have a new master plan that's coming out. Look forward to seeing what those numbers look like for the law enforcement side. But that's why I'm up here, and that's why I was advocate for Measure B and the public safety. So I appreciate that.
Does anyone else have questions for Sergeant Snyder?
In the, well, we're calling it now the unhoused, is there ever any notification, and maybe Linda, you could speak to this, when you encounter a group or camp or whatever, is the health department of Merced County ever notified as well?
Yes, they occasionally, depending if it meets to that criteria. If we have an individual that there's a serious issue with a possible maybe outbreak or something like that, sure, they're going to get notified. But for the most of the time, generally not. I know in the past I've contacted Environmental Protection Agency because of the soil and everything else. They'll come out and do their review or report on if there's a issue with the soiling of the land that they've occupied.
Well, that's kind of the thrust of my question is, I mean, we've all been down Santa Fe right there at 59. And that's not a camp, that's a city over there on both sides of the road. And, there's a waterway basically right there and all that. And, it's as you say, soiling the ground is putting it mildly. I just am concerned that that's going to become a health and safety issue within our city as well.
I've brought it up to other entities in the past regarding because we've had issues where it, for lack of a better term, becomes a dumping ground for their commode and stuff like that. And last thing I want is an officer falling through that and getting hurt, and then if they do have an exposed wound as a result, and potentially getting septic, as a result of feces and things like that, it's disgusting. And so, when we come across that, that's a big deal.
Well, when, I think about this also, there was a gentleman that had a home, if I remember correctly, right behind the Tractor Supply. And he came to the council asking, he was in fact begging that something be done because he was being tagged with the biohazard stuff and all that involved his property and all that. And as I recall, I think the place burned down finally.
There's no longer a structure there. There's a pad, but no structure.
But I mean, it just goes to, the whole thing that, where did, we have funding, supposed to be earmarked within Measure B that is supposed to go to this. And I don't mean to say the eradication, but some kind of something. It seems kind of non-specific, but something from the funding within Measure B that goes towards the homeless issue. So That's one of the things that concerns me is, you know, the citizens don't need to be exposed to the biohazards and things like that that come along with that.
Understand.
So.
Yes.
Thank you, Sergeant Snyder. We don't have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Pimentel, you're up.
Again, good evening, committee members. My name is Mark Pimentel, Assistant Chief for Atwater City Fire Department. Report here for the fire department is we have Station 41 that ran 496 calls. Station 42 ran 297 calls with a grand total of 793 calls. This has been since the beginning of 2025. We did have a little bit of movement in the battalion. We were able to promote within Engineer Long is promoted to the captain at station. Well, actually, he'll be relief captain in the Atwater City Battalion. And then firefighter Mraz is promoted to engineer also in the city of Atwater. So it's been really fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to promote these individuals within that are already familiar with the city and continue working here and hopefully stay here for quite some time. IUSO and myself are also working on bringing in some new to fill behind the firefighter position immediately. We are also doing a truck academy that is currently going on. You'll see a lot of company officers and a lot of work going on around Station 42 where the truck academy is being hosted. For the update on the Type 6, we're looking about 3 to 4 months. Hopefully have that here. Obviously, it might take a little bit of time to outfit it, to get it into service. But again, it's on its way. Some of the things that Mr. Santos had mentioned is those items that were purchased through the cow farm is that chainsaw and those items for that new apparatus that's coming to the city. Also, as far as the quarters for the CAL FIRE agreement, quarter one was $1,210,000. Second quarter was $1,136,000, with a total of $2,003,406,000. And that has all been spent for Measure B with all the new staffing that you guys have supported, or the council has supported through adding those staffing for the city fire department. Some of those future projects also, in the next 3 months, miscellaneous items will be purchased to uplift outfit the Type 6, and then moving forward on some of the plans for Station 42 for the improvements for the ADA compliance and the bathrooms. I know some of those are just projected items that we're looking forward to spend on, but we do have infrastructure issues in Station 41, such as mold in the shower area, and even having that facility being as old as it is, it does not have any kind of ADA compliance, and that comes to be an issue if public comes to visit the facility. So we want to make sure that we try to address those issues right away. Looking at starting the year, school inspections and assembly inspections as part of the SBA Senate Bill 12006 mandates, requires the annual report from the fire department to be a local governed body, and various inspections, and including schools and large assembly areas. Routine business, including annual business inspections, have continued. And then public education, doing the toy drive has been a huge success. And then a career day at the high schools, and then working with UHAC Colony for some forensics training focused on fire inspection. If there's anything else, I'm here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to again thank Chief Ayuso for answering the questions when I had some of those questions. Thank you, Chief Pimentel, for being here tonight. It is nice to see when people want to stick around in the city. Just shows that things are going in the right direction when they want to promote within the city and stay within the city. So it's nice. Thank your staff for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now verbal city manager update with city manager Home.
We have a couple events coming up. I believe March. I should have my notes with me, but we have. Let me just open it up. Bear with me for just a moment. So there's a spring cleanup that's happening on March 15th. from 7 to noon, and that's happening at the flea market. And then we also have Atwater Youth Baseball Opening Day, the same day, March 15th. That's at 9 a.m. at Memorial Ballpark. And then on April 12th is the Easter egg hunt. Check-in is at 9, and the event starts at 10. That's at Veterans Park.
Any questions or comments for the city manager at this time? No?
Just, Chris, is there any possibility that one day the city attorney could attend one of these meetings?
We can consider that. Yeah, I can look into that.
Yeah, just for clarification of this, just, you know, it would be nice to know that, and I think the public has some questions regarding that as well. So, just a thought. And I'd also like to ask if, you know, the city, I mean, we modified the time that we're doing this meeting, for example. We also modified that rather than being semi-annual, it be quarterly meetings. So it seems to me that there is wiggle room to make modifications within the ordinance that wouldn't have to be necessarily voted on by the public. I mean, these are kind of housekeeping issues is what I see. And the one thing we brought up tonight, Mr. President, both I think addressed this, was making recommendations. I don't know an oversight committee that doesn't do that, and we can't. It doesn't allow for it in the ordinance. So if there's some way that maybe you can just ask him, the city attorney, to see if there's some way that we could possibly do some kind of a modification to the ordinance just to allow for this body to make, you know, to take votes on certain things and make recommendations of things similar to that of a planning commission, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, yes. And I'll talk with the city attorney and report back on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Holman, can you just confirm, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. As a committee, oversight committee, we can still make a recommendation as far as, is this appropriate use of the public safety funds? And if that was found to not be an appropriate use, there would just be a budget change or those funds returned back if needed, if it was determined that, no, that did not. Is that still something that we have and we reserve the right to do, correct?
That's my understanding. However, like the process of that, I think it would be helpful to provide more information in depth on that process and maybe do like a mini training at a future committee meeting, just so everyone understands and can get to the bottom of that. Thank you.
Perfect. I think that would be great, and I just want to make sure I ask the question now before we get into the closing comments, but can you just confirm that within the current public safety and use parameters, that paying out for the PERS is within that? I believe it is, but...
It's a benefit, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any final closing comments from anyone on the committee?
Thank you to all city staff for responding to any questions we had. Appreciate that. And I just encourage any community member or committee member to ask those questions as soon as possible so we can get those answered and have answers when we come to the meetings versus questions for the next meeting. I think it works great.
If I may, I just want to thank you and everyone on the committee for coming prepared to the meeting with questions so that we can help you and the community get answers to your questions about, you know, everything related to this topic. So thank you for your preparation and thank you for being here.
Yeah, not to keep going over old ground, but when I was making the comment about recommendations, what I mean is, for example, like with a planning commission has, let's say, a housing development come before them, and they kick it around and then eventually come to a consensus, and they send recommendations to the city council. That's kind of the thrust of what I'm talking about, is that, you know, if there's something that comes up, and I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but just the same, if there's something that comes up, it may be a real good idea, but it might need some tweaking or modification or something along those lines. We should be, as oversight, able to look at that and analyze it, discuss it, and then forward that to the city council for consideration, just like a planning commission would do with a housing development or streets or something to that effect. That's the thrust of my comment on that. So.
Thank you. And I think I understand where you're going, and I'll talk with the city attorney and see what would be necessary, whether it needs to go back to the voters or how this all works, and I'll bring back a report on that.
Thank you, Chris. And lastly, I brought it up last night at City Council, but I'll bring it up with this body, even though it's maybe going over old territory. But for the past 3 weeks, you folks have probably noticed, or you've seen on social media where it's been beat up and everything, about the very, very large 777s flying around in our airspace out here. And it's generated some of the funniest comments I think I've ever seen on social media about it. But nonetheless, it's very benign. It's exciting to see. It's exciting for us that work at Castle to see, you know, a big, large aircraft like that out on our ramp, and you know, be working with a group like that. But these folks are only in the area to do noise testing, where they take off and they have a bank of microphones at the end of the runway, and they do laps, and they come around and go over that, and they measure the noise and collect the data, and you know, that's what they do. FAA representatives are on board the aircraft to monitor all the things that are going on, and the idea, it's kind of neat if they put a bunch of ballast in the cargo pit down below, like where your luggage would go. They put like 35,000 pounds or something like that in there, and they have to shift it around and all this, and then they put on different weights of the fuel load and all this kind of stuff. So when they take off and they pull up, the engines work at a different level to gain altitude and do that kind of stuff, and that's the noise that they measure. It's really quite fascinating, but nonetheless, we're going to be seeing that type of activity within our area here. We have the very first one, you may have seen the gray and white looking 777 here. It'll be back in about 2 weeks, and they're watching the weather right now, so they're not even thinking about coming here, but in about 2 weeks, they'll be making a return trip back here, and you'll see them running around in the skies again. But if you know anybody that's concerned about this, calm down, tap the brakes, because it's perfectly safe. Nobody is breaking the sound barrier or shattering windows, this kind of stuff that I've seen some of these comments. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along to everybody. Thanks.
Mr. Perez? Okay, well, with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight. It's great to see some audience participation. We really do appreciate that. And then I do have one request for the city manager, not that you would not do it, but There was a lot of information and concern raised at tonight's meeting, not just by those who are here in the public, but also from the committee members. When you do respond back to one of the committee members, if possible, if it doesn't have sensitive information, if there's anything that you could actually share with the remaining members of the committee on that particular item, it would be helpful. So this way, the entire committee could be in the know and updated on, you know, some of these key points that were made today, so no one kind of feels that there's just a one-on-one, you know, with one member, and then everyone else kind of feels kind of left out. Not that anyone has said that. It just came to me when the statement was made, I'll get back to you. It's like, you know, oh, wait a minute. Which is great. I mean, you have always been responsive. But what I'm trying to say is if there's a way to communicate to everyone the outcome of the discussion, that would be very helpful in keeping the rest of the committee updated. So this way, at the next meeting, we don't have to kind of rehash some of those same issues.
Okay, and I'll do you one better than that. I'll to the extent possible, I'll post like a kind of an FAQ or kind of a report back on our website, and then share the link with the committee members so that not just the committee but also the public can view the answers that you're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, again, thank you to everyone for participating and attending this evening. There's nothing left on the agenda, and I'd like to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.